We could never have predicted the chain of events that lead to the breaking of the human quarantine. For many revolutions of the planet around its primary star, we had contained and studied the human race. They were a fascinatingly deadly species, evolved from persistent exhaustion predators on a planet teeming with deadly fauna. Able to endure a disturbingly vast range of climates and temperatures, able to survive and recover from drastic bodily damage, the humans were the very definition of a super predator, and they evolved with no natural weapons or defenses other than their own intellect and ingenuity. They were gifted murderers. Their technology was entirely derived from their own interspecific warfare. How ironic, then, that their rise to power in the galaxy was derived from so innocent an interaction. Light years away, a pod of space whales fought for their lives. Sentient biological ships, they were mostly harmless, defenseless. Their only means of protection was the ability to jump through hyperspace, to cross vast distances in the blink of an eye, and the ability to launch plasmid stingers, annoyances really, against an enemy. When the Volur decided they were a heresy to their gods, they slaughtered every pod they could find. Of course, the galactic community attempted to stop them, but the Volur were powerful, unstoppable. When this pod, one of only a handful left in all the galaxy, was attacked, it seemed that their complete destruction was inevitable. We thought they had all been slaughtered. We were wrong. In a weird quirk of cosmic fate, a lone juvenile female, barely older than an infant, managed to escape, launching herself through the ether in her first hyperspace leap. She crash-landed on Earth, the human homeworld. Discovered by a young male, a child himself, they formed a bond, something we hadn't observed before, a symbiotic link. Sharing his own life force, the human male was able to nurse her back to health, in the process cementing themselves together in a bond that would prove to be unbreakable. When their government discovered this, the humans surprised us yet again. Rather than dissect the strange alien life form, they listened to her story, and it moved them. They became heartbroken. They became angry, furiously angry. In the span of a year, the young captain and his bonded ship left orbit, laden down with a full army of human soldiers and their terrible weapons. They left orbit and jumped into hyperspace before we could even register what had happened. In the years to follow, horrifying rumors began to spread. The Volur fleets were mysteriously decimated. The space whales were no longer the placid leviathans that so easily gave in to the slaughter. They had teeth now. An orphan roamed the streets of Charleston. Carrying a meager pack with his worldly belongings on his back, Sam Jones had had enough. He was 10 years old now. His expiration date had arrived. Chances of adoption dropped by 90% once a child hits 10 years of age. He knew he would never find a family now, so he had struck out on his own to find his fortune. He had stopped in a park to rest. He had been walking for a while now. Taking a moment to sit on a park bench, he looked up at the stars. Sam had always been fascinated by space. Space was infinite, after all. Maybe there was a family out there for him. He saw a falling star and made a wish. Send me a family. The moving point of light grew brighter and bigger, and he realized with a start that it was coming towards him. Slack-jawed, he watched as the object, a living mass the size of a small Winnebago, crashed into the woods bare yards away. Fear warred with curiosity in his mind. Should he investigate, or should he run? It was the singing that decided him. It was beautiful, a haunting paean of sadness, loss, and pain. A wordless song of loneliness and separation, a call for companionship that spoke to Sam on the deepest emotional levels. An orphan fell through the cold blackness of space. Starlight was despondent. She had witnessed the pod slaughter firsthand, the carnage and the pain songs as the great matriarchs were violently sent into the next life. In a panic, she had made her maiden leap, her inexperience dumping her out too close to the gravity well if a strange planet. As she smacked into the ground, tearing a furrow into the topsoil, she allowed herself to fall into despair. She poured out her emotions in the only way she knew how, the plaintive weeping of a child for its mother. She froze in fear, however, as her sensors registered a life form in her close proximity. So this is how it ends? I escaped the tormentors only to be eaten on this alien world? She wept even louder with the unfairness of it all. But then, she felt the contact on her hull. It was soft, gentle, comforting. She reached out with the psionic comms net that her species used to communicate with passengers, and what she found when she brushed the creature's mind surprised her. Sadness, concern, pity. A question bubbles forth from the mind of this being, a wordless inquiry as they had no words in common. How can I help you? What can I do? As Sam continued to stroke the skin of this creature, this beautiful star child, he could feel her, as he now knew she was female, softly touching his mind, learning him as he learned her. She was beautifully fragile, a smooth, lozenge-shaped creature, all smooth lines and sleek curves, an organic cluster of pods at the aft end. She was a gentle red color, with a green stripe on the dorsal surface. She was small and vulnerable. He could feel them trading each other, and in the process, forming a deep and lasting connection. He felt her pain. Her injuries were pretty bad. Without knowing the words, he asked her how he could help. The response was unmistakable. Touch me. Comfort me. An opening quivered into being on the side of this creature's hull, and he went inside. As he watched, she formed her internal structures to match what she read from his mind. A cockpit with wide viewing ports, a cabin with a soft sleeping platform and Spartan hygienic facilities, a cargo hold, currently empty. Taking a seat at what could only be the captain's chair, Sam began stroking the arms of the chair, trying to offer comfort where he could. He jumped as a mass of tendrils caressed his skin, tracing the unseen lines of his nervous system. As Starlight began the first interface with her chosen captain, she began taking biological readings, as star children had done since they first took a passenger. What she found astonished her. This species was fundamentally different from any she had encountered before. Their high-protein diet gave them boundless energy. Their biological and mental processes were surprisingly efficient. This was a race of predators, their minds specifically geared towards the complex decision-making processes of stalking and taking prey, a set of processes that was uniquely suited towards administrating her various systems. She asked and was granted a deeper access to this Sam's mind. The result was an interface far deeper and more solid than any her species had ever recorded. She began to feel healed as Sam eagerly shared his life energy with her, repairing her damaged systems. The two lone souls communed like this through the night, and when the morning sun rose through the trees, they were no longer two orphans. They were a partnership. A year had passed since the U.S. government had discovered the orphaned space whale and her human captain. When her story hit the news nets, a huge outpouring of public sentiment was the result. Something about the story of a last lone survivor of an attempted genocide had spoken deeply to the hearts and souls of the human race. Commander Jane Lynch had been attached to Starlight and Sam as a tactical advisor and unofficial second-in-command. For a year, Sam had been intensively trained in three-dimensional tactics, ship tactics, and theoretical space warfare. He had proven to be a master strategist. The synergistic link between him and his ship allowed for a level of intuitive ability that was unmatched anywhere in the world. Coupled with that, a contingent of the cream of the Special Forces crop had been specifically trained and outfitted for extravehicular ejection and boarding. Using a mixture of Starchild biotechnology and good old-fashioned human bloody-mindedness, a whole new generation of weapons had been quickly developed. Pulse rifles that could break down organic material, plasma throwers that could destabilize metallic bonds, and even a cannon based on the hyperspace jump apparatus that could rip spacecraft apart. The physics breakthroughs were also incredible. They had developed graviton technology into a weapon called the Subspace Area Denial Field, essentially freezing non-organic ships in space and draining their electrical energy. Essentially, it was a small, localized singularity that was cycled in and out of hyperspace at rapid speeds, altering the fundamental fabric of spacetime, making technologically based ship movement impossible, but leaving organic ship, like the Star Children, unaffected. These weapons had been painlessly grafted to Starlight's hull, drastically increasing her defensive capabilities. Starlight, through her human partner, expressed an extreme gratitude for all that the humans had done for her. Indeed, the partnership between Starchild and human had grown even deeper. The humans had graciously offered their solar system as a new nursery system if she ever found more of her kind. And what a system! A young main sequence star to warm them, several large gas giants to nourish them. The Sol system was a paradise. But today was the day. Today, Starlight was strong enough to leave the surface. After taking on her ship's complement of 50 hardened warriors and their military advisor, Sam went to the bridge and began to commune with his partner. Slowly, silently, the space whale lifted off to the roaring approval of crowds of humans the world over. She was their darling, their mascot, humanity's little sister. The whole world had united in support of her and her mission of vengeance. After a brief orbital unload of supplies, she turned towards the blackness of space and jumped towards the last known pod sanctuaries. This process had taken a day. Unbeknownst to the humans, a lone observation station behind the moon was entering a panic. Alarms were blaring, and the one Hobran observer was frantically trying to message the Galactic Senate, his wings buzzing and appendages gesticulating wildly. The message that got out would spell a radical change for galactic politics for all time. The humans are loose! The humans are loose! Burning sky, they're loose! In the decades that followed the Great Quarantine Break, the Villeleur became all but extinct, and the face of the galaxy changed forever. Starlight and her stalwart captain became names to be feared, spoken of in quiet whispers in the dead of night, and they were truly fearsome. The ship would appear out of nowhere, firing some of the most devastating weapons ever created, and the Villeleur whaling ships would be utterly devastated. She would round up the unfortunate victims, forming them into a dense group, and then she would pull them along in her slipstream as she jumped back to Earth. There, the space whales found their safe haven. Hundreds of ships would bask in the sun glow of Earth's young star, recovering energy and recuperating from often grievous wounds. Then they would migrate to the large fifth planet to feed off of the dense atmospheric gases. It was said that the sight of the star children migrating from star to gas giant was glorious, visible from planetside with the naked eye. Older, adult ships would choose a captain, a customized weapons harness loadout, and then they would join the vast and growing anti-whaling fleet, starting the process anew. In that time, mankind also made contact with the galactic community. They were treated with an almost fearful respect, given deference and a wide berth. In time, however, the humans became a viable resource, a fallback and a reinforcement, a last violent hope when all seems lost. But then, the unthinkable happened. The Villeleur, in a last-ditch, desperate attempt to stave off the terrible vengeance that they had wrought upon themselves, crafted a biological weapon, a virus, and dropped it on Earth. The results were devastating. By the time the human immune system was able to adapt to and overcome the virus, a truly remarkable evolutionary adaptation, by the way, the virus had decimated their homeworld. A population of billions was reduced to hundreds of thousands. It was then that the humans became truly fearsome. Abandoning their homeworld, the entire population embarked into their partnerships and dispersed throughout the galaxy. When the Galactic Science Foundation heard about this, of course we attempted to study Earth. What we found kept us on our best behavior. The humans had turned their entire star system into a nature preserve. Devastating antimatter mines surrounded the system. A spherical arrangement of weapons platforms armed with death engines so esoteric that we can still only guess at their function girdled the entire system. The planet itself was guarded by satellites and a moon-based tachyon laser pulse emitter that could disassemble the atomic bonds of any substance. The planet itself showed very minimal signs of civilization. What hadn't been disassembled had been reclaimed by overgrowth. Occasionally, observers would see the ships coming back to rest, in pods of 4 or 5. No one dared to interfere with them, for they knew the terrible consequences that would ensue. The only thing that gave the community any sense of reassurance was a lone subspace ansible, a summoning beacon embossed with a plaque that read Gjallarhorn Subspace Beacon. Activate only in dire emergency. No one dared touch it.